Hey everybody, what's going on? Maroon Rhythms here again, and I want to go over in this video why I switched from becoming a producer, a beat maker, to an engineer. Let's get right into it. All right, so first things first, and this is something I want to explain first to clarify. So I want to clarify beat maker when I say producer. So every time I say producer in this video, know that I mean beat maker. Pretty much everyone in the industry knows that producers are not just beat makers, right? You can be like a DJ Khaled type of producer where you put things together, you put the whole project together or the whole song together. You pick the beat maker, you pick the artist, you pick the featured artist, you put it together. That's also being a producer without having to touch any instruments or any type of composition. So I'm specifically talking about producers in a beat making sense. So with that being said, reason number one of why I switched from becoming a beat maker type of producer to an engineer. Immediate money right now. When I quit my job, my day job about 8 years ago, I wanted to get in the music industry. I forced myself to get into this music business, music industry. I said enough is enough, and I told myself that I'm going to find a way. The only thing that allowed me to do that was obviously making money right away so that I could afford to live, I could afford to eat, I could afford to pay bills, etc., etc. So being an engineer, you get paid, a recording engineer specifically, and mixing too, but I started off as a recording engineer. You get paid right away after each session. And that's what helped me to sustain myself day to day. You know, when you're a producer, especially just starting out, it's hard to make a living. It's hard to make a living right away. There are different ways, don't get me wrong. In my opinion, there's either two ways. You either make money online or you make money off of the industry with royalties, industry artists. So there are times when producers can get with major artists and they can get paid on the spot for their production. But you have to get with major artists for that. Usually local artists don't really want to pay much for beats, and if they do, it's far and few in between. It's harder, much harder to make a living off of just going around and selling beats to artists, local artists or industry artists. But there are exceptions, right? There are exceptions to the rule where people happen to get an opportunity with a major artist and they end up paying them thousands for a beat. They end up getting royalties as well because it's a major artist. So you guys have to remember that really only major artists make royalties. So if you're giving your beats for free to somebody who's just starting out, don't count on making anything from it. Don't count on making any royalties because they need to run those numbers up. Those streams need to run up. All of that needs to run up for them their numbers need to run up for them to even be making money. And that's a long process. So for someone who needs to get paid right now, engineering is the way. It doesn't matter to me if I'm working with a local person or I'm working with a famous person. I've done both. I do both. And either way, I'm getting paid right now, today, as a recording engineer. So that's the main reason why. That's one of the reasons why I switched from making beats. It didn't make sense financially to me. I'm able to work full time as a recording and mix engineer and not have a day job. That's the main point that I'm trying to give to you guys here. The other way I just mentioned it to make money as a producer is making money online. So you can sell beats. There's people that are selling their beats online. All those beats that you see on YouTube. They're using like BeatStars accounts and stuff like that and getting their beats up there and leasing them for $30 or $40 or whatever amount. But leasing them meaning they can lease the same beat to different people, a million times. So you can sell a beat, you can lease a beat for $30 and lease it to 100,000 people or even lease it to 1,000 people. And that's a lot of money. So That's one way that producers can make money. But for me, that didn't work. I did the leasing thing, and I didn't like it because I wasn't happy. I felt pressure to make beats every day. I felt pressure to have a certain, put myself on a quota and a deadline and try to make all of these beats and try to lease them out and do the, and get as much beats as I can up on YouTube and all of that. And it took the happiness away from me from making beats. Making beats is supposed to be a stress-free, at least for me, not for everyone. Some people wake up in the morning. If you wake up in the morning and you're like, man, I love making beats, I want to make beats, and that's your thing, do it. If it's no pressure for you, do it. For some people, pressure is doing what I do, engineering. And that's easy for me. I engineer in my sleep. But, for me, it took the fun out of it. When I used to make beats when I was 15, 16, I used to just do it for fun. I wasn't worried about money. And that's what made it fun for me. And it having the pressure to make beats to make a living took the fun out of making beats. It sucked all the life out of it for me. So it just wasn't my thing. So the second reason of why I switched from being a producer to an engineer is because engineers are in demand. And that's what I found out once I started doing it. So a lot of people make beats. A lot of people write songs. A lot of people say, hey, I'm a songwriter. Hey, I'm a beat maker. Hey, I'm an artist. That's very, very saturated. For me to come in and say, hey, I'm an engineer, that's less saturated. Why? This is what I always say. Because nobody wants to do it. Why? Because it's too technical. People don't like to learn the technical side. Even though really, once you kind of learn the basic technical stuff that you got to know, it's all creative and it's all fun. It's not too technical, in my opinion. But you do have to be computer savvy and you got to kind of know your way around a computer a little bit. But it's not that bad. It's not that technical. But you do have to have a little bit of a aptitude. You have a little bit of an ability to be comfortable around and be fast with computers and understanding how some things work. So yeah, there is a learning curve. And I think that's what, people talk about barrier to entry, right? So the barrier to entry to being a songwriter or a music producer or a beat maker beat makers are iffy, right? Because the barrier to entry, you got to make good beats to be able to get somewhere. And I would say the same thing with engineering. Yeah, you can call yourself an engineer and you can start recording people. But if you really want to start making a living off of this, you have to be good. So there's a little bit of a barrier to entry, and it's the path that is taken less when people get into music. So I think there's less engineers, and I think that opens a door. That opens doors to get inside with more people, with more industry artists, with more whatever you want to do. It gets your foot in the door, and that's really another reason. Getting your foot in the door with these people is much easier, in my opinion, as a recording engineer. Let people see recording engineers as, I guess sometimes people see them as low positions. I think that's wrong. I think that people in the music industry, big artists, actually value good recording engineers and they love them. And they're actually, good recording engineers are actually winning because they're harder to find. The reason why they're looked down on, recording engineers are looked down on as a job, is because there's a lot of people who just want to make money. So they open up a studio in their house or in a warehouse somewhere and they don't know much about engineering and they don't really care. They just care about the money. So they sit there and they fall asleep while you're recording. Oh, yeah? You want to do that take again? All right. Get their phone. They don't pay attention, etc., etc. So They get a bad rep because of that. And that leads me to my next point. My third reason is that engineers have opened doors to the industry. There are rooms that I ended up in recording industry artists just because I'm an engineer. And guess what? They have to talk to me and they have to communicate with me and they have to get to know me. Do you know why? Because guess who's in the chair controlling their session? Guess who's in the pilot seat? It's me. It's you. Which means that we have control over what's going on. They have to communicate with us. I can say I'm a writer and go in a session and have no say. Or even not get in the session. Oh, you're a writer? Okay, that's cool, but who cares? There's tons of writers. I don't need you. What value are you bringing? Oh, you're bringing the value of a writer? That's a good value, but I already have 3 writers. I already have a go-to. Engineers are not, I would argue to say that engineers are not as easy, good engineers are not as easy to come by. So when you find one, you stick to it, which is why get in the door being an engineer. It's a good place to be still right now. I was out there competing with my friends who are writers and, friendly competition. My friends who are writers and friends who are producers. And guess who's getting in more rooms with famous people, with industry artists, guess who's getting more paid? That's the engineer. That's me, because my value as an engineer, you know what I mean? It's harder to find. It's harder to find a good engineer that knows the technical and the creative and is going to have your back. Guess who gets, oh my gosh, if you're a producer and an engineer, oh, get out of here. Guess what the best way is to get your beats to artists? Come on. Who's sitting in the chair? The engineer. The producer's not sitting in the chair. There are times where people send me beats and I'm in a session with an artist. Guess who chooses what beats to pull up? Me. What if, I wouldn't do this, but what if I don't like somebody and a producer sends me a beat and I don't like that producer in person? I'm not going to play their beats. I'm in control. The engineer's in control. Or the opposite. I've done this where I know somebody personally and I know somebody and I like them and we're friends and they send me beats. I'm in a room with an industry artist. I'm going to play their beats first because I'm an engineer. What if it's my beats and I'm in the chair with them? Oh, listen to my beats. Who made this? Me. Oh, pull that up. Oh, I can record you too. Oh, get out of here. It's game over. Game over if you know how to engineer. I have a friend right now in LA that I taught that's killing it as an engineer. He never even wanted to be an engineer. He just wanted to get out of his day job. I taught him how to engineer. And he's out in LA doing his thing, working with Diddy, etc. He's doing it big as a producer. It's not even an engineer, but he's engineering. Why? Because it opened the doors for him. Engineering opens doors. It's a good thing to learn. Even if you want to be a producer, I would highly recommend it. But those are my 3 reasons why I switched from being a producer, beat maker, to an engineer. And it's not for everybody. Some people are producers. If that's your thing, stick to being a producer. If that's your thing. I mean, if you can do both, do both. But, a lot of people say stick to one main thing. And I think my main thing just led me to engineering. You know what I mean? It's just something that I saw myself being able to add value in sessions. The value that I'm able to give to artists has been tremendous. And I realized that that's my thing. You know what I mean? I realized that may be more of my calling. I'm still figuring it out because guess what? I still love producing. And I think that eventually when I want to produce and put out my own stuff again, I will. And you guys may see that soon. But for now, it's about racking up the engineering, just doing all I can to try to master this craft. And it's still a journey for me. But if you're a producer, keep running it up. Just keep an open mind though into learning how to engineer at least a little bit. Because if you learn the basics and you can run a session, it's game over. If you can hop in that chair and be like, hey, let me record you on my beat. It's game over. Game over. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. It was an exciting video to talk about. I wanted to talk about the reasons of why I switched. Money right now, more demand for it, open doors in the industry. If you guys are just learning about engineering, or if you're a producer and you want to learn about engineering, check the link in the description and take my course on engineering. It is the most comprehensive course without you having to go to audio school. Don't do it yet. Take the course. Follow along with me in Pro Tools. I'll give you everything. I'll show you we'll make a template together. We record step by step together. I tell you everything you need to buy. I teach you about EQ, compression, all the basics, all the way up to recording. Something I wish I had before I went to audio school and got my bachelor's. Before I jumped out in the streets just trying to record people. And I learned all the wrong ways before I learned the right way. So don't learn the wrong ways, guys. Take the course and learn properly from Maroon Rhythms. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.